Okay, cool. So today we are talking about big emotions as a CEO, how to handle them, how to deal with them, the fact that we all have them, all the things. What I will just start with basically is that the reason I feel like I particularly wanted to have this convo / is a conversation that I feel like is woven through things a lot is because big emotions are normal. Like, let's just start with that. Yeah. Michelle said, I have big emotions, period. I feel like I've told you guys this story before because it cracks me up, but I'll tell you again, since we're talking about maternity and since Michelle just said that. But I have like lots of big emotions and I'm like very in touch with them and happy to share them and be vocal about them and all the things. And so I remember when I think it was when I was like leaving the hospital or like one of my first appointments after I had Bennett, um, the doctor was like saying to Kenny, like stuff to like look out for or whatever postpartum. And they were like, if she's like really emotional or crying more than usual, I don't remember exactly how they said it, if she cries easily, something like that. And Kenny like looks at the doctor like dead ass serious. Hey, we're get it. Looks at the doctor like dead ass serious and was like, so like, what if that's baseline? Like, if that's baseline we're dealing with, what should I be looking for? And the doctor like did not know what to do with that. She was like so confused. But like, I just say that to say like, let's normalize this. Like big emotions do not equal bad. They do not equal something wrong with you. They do not equal something you have to shift. They do not equal, a mental health challenge. They could, right? Like it could be part of it. But it's just to say that I think that so much in our world, in the personal development world, is like uncomfortable emotion equals bad. You should be doing something to fix that. And I just do not think that's true. I do not think that's how the world works. I do not think that is useful. I do not think that is supportive of most of us. And so we are going to have that combo. Lacey's crying in baseline. Water moon problems. I need to figure that out. I wonder what. No, I don't think I know that answer, but I probably do have a water moon. I got to imagine. I cry quite easily, but I don't actually know what that would be in my chart. I'm like just getting into it because all my clients lately, I feel like have been so into astrology and everyone. I actually had a call with one of them this morning. She was like, so you're going to do me a thing and you're going to download this app. So I'm going to download the app, but point being, big emotions are okay. And especially in a situation like running a business that is your own, they are going to come up. And the more we think they're wrong when they come up, the bigger of a problem it is. Honestly, that is what actually spirals most people, is not just having the big emotion, but thinking having the big emotion is wrong. That's where most people lose their shit. And so that's what I kind of want to say today is like, let's have that conversation of like, yes, how do we deal with the big emotion, but more, how do we also stop the spiral that leads to more craziness because we think we shouldn't be, or we think we're wrong, right? Now I need to know what app it is. I'll look, Michelle, I can't remember. Katrina said big emotions, so time appropriate. I just had a big cry. Oh no, I lost it. I just had a big cry as I received and then I lost it. Feel free to share that part with me, but just seeing you in your big cry. Shari said, or will prevent you from manifesting. No. Just no. Seeing you in that, Katrina. So this is actually so interesting. I'm just going to share this quick little combo I was having with one of my mom friends recently. And Bennett just always has gotten up through the night for the most part. We had a really good stretch like when he was a newborn, but like pretty much after that he like gets up. So yeah, I just like, it's kind of not a thing for me anymore. Like I'm more tired than I would prefer to be, but like, shit happens. And I just don't make it much of a thing. And one of my mom friends was saying like her kid had a really, really hard night. And in the past, what she would have done is kind of spiraled and been like, oh my God, how can I like function and like have a career and a life and with all of this happening. Oh, hold on. I don't want to miss it again. You received your first publisher with 3 editors' feedback comments, and it was so painful. Seeing you in that, like, that is so appropriate for big emotion. Like, let's talk through that. Yes. Co-star is the most popular, but not necessarily the best. Oh, probably astrology app. Yeah. When I got my first client through Upwork, tears. Oh, that's awesome. So anyway, she was saying, like, prior to that, like, if her son had a bad night, it would be like a total spiral of like, oh my God, like, how am I going to ever do this? Da, da. And she said this time it was so different. She was kind of able to be like, oh, like, I was just tired today, and not make a lot of meaning out of it. And when she said that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. I feel like that's certainly the point I've gotten to, like, where if Bennett like has a night where he gets up quite a bit, I'm not like, and this means something. I'm just like, tonight he got up a lot, you know? And so I think what's really helpful about that is sort of like, that's the example of like, you can spiral or you can not, but the emotion or the feeling or the physical, you know, thing in this case of like tired is going to be there. It's just like, how much does it sort of like send you spiraling? And I think that's exactly the same in business, right? It's like the emotions are going to be here. How big, how much, how impactful they are is the thing that we can, you know, do some work around and control for. But anything that's telling you that it can wipe out your emotions, like, one, do you even want that? And two, I would be very, very, very cautious of that, because that is a really good marketing style, but is usually really, really, really not true, right? Lisa said that was something that really turned me off in the corporate world, the shaming around women having emotions in the workspace. So 100% I'll allow me and everyone else emotions in my business, because the shaming of women being too emotional needs to change. Could not agree more, right? It's so weird to start having big emotions and still keep doing all the things. Yeah, I love that, Dominique. I think that's so true too, right? Because when we're kind of feeling like we shouldn't, then it can kind of make us stop doing the thing. So it's like, I'm having a big emotion, I shouldn't. And that's when like a lot of us like stop or freeze because we feel like something has gone wrong. But to kind of master that ability to like have a big emotion and not that let that stop you, make you stand still, spiral you, etc. Like, that's actually super cool, but it's for sure like weird to get into that and start doing it. So I like really appreciate you naming that. I think it's so true. Michelle said, yes, I've heard you're too sensitive or too emotional my whole life. Cosign Michelle. I got too sensitive forever. Ironically, I now support women in emotional intelligence. As it turns out, learning to harness that was really my superpower. Oh, so good. Yes, fuck yes, Jessica. She said, people who think our emotions are a problem are emotionally immature. Judging. Yeah, so funny. This is also essential for neurodivergent people who struggle with emotional dysregulation. Thank you so much for naming that, Kate. I think that's so true and so important to be like, we are all having these, we're all having different experiences or scope or intensity with them, but no one's like getting out of the human game without this, you know? Kim, same. Yeah, I feel like probably so many of us, like I, for sure, me since I was a kid, like I remember that like very early on, like some early memories, like that being such a thing, like Lacey is too sensitive. And I don't even want to say that was from like, you know, my mom or immediate family, but that was definitely like a big narrative in my life. So I hear you. It's such a challenge to not let it turn into a negativity spiral. My brain wants to then focus on every single thing that doesn't feel like it's working. Totally. Because here's the thing. We think big emotion equals big problem, right? Like totally it. Big emotion equals big problem is sort of how we're programmed, I think. And so it makes sense that then instead of wanting to like process and feel the emotion, our brains want to go solve the big problem. And that's really helpful to see too, is like, are we actually letting ourselves process and be with the emotion? Or are we just trying to solve the problem so we don't have that emotion again? Because that's what I see happen with so many clients is they're trying to solve the problem so they don't have the emotion again. And it makes them make decisions that are not necessarily the most supportive of their business, because they think, well, if I make this decision, then I can like hopefully not have that emotion again. And that's the trap, right? Shari said, so interesting. I came from nonprofit and it was very woman dominated. My qualm was no one knew how to regulate. So feedback was given from individual emotions and it was so difficult to move in a cohesive direction. So interesting, Shari. That's super helpful too. So it's almost like we can have the big emotion, but like, where does the I can still regulate and move forward and business piece come in too, which is really important as well, right? Michelle said I felt this in a higher ed space too, but it was done from a dissociated place, even though it was emotion led. Yep, totally. Yep. And Kate said big trap, not avoiding it, just feeling and healing. Yes. Morgana said part of my PhD is on embodied emotions and how Western culture pushed emotions along with many aspects considered feminine out of culturally acceptable. Yes. Oh, gave me goosebumps. So good, Morgana. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah. Like, and then I think people prey on that in marketing too. So it's like, okay, these big emotions are not acceptable. And so marketing gets positioned like, do this thing and you'll never have to feel this. Do this thing and you won't feel this. If you're feeling this, you're bad, wrong, missing something, right? Like, not only is it like not acceptable, but then it gets like weaponized against most women too, right? Like, it's super fucked. Yes, completely, perfectly said, Jess. There's a difference between acting out based on an emotion versus holding space for it. And sounds like those colleagues were acting out totally, right? And I think there's also a way in which like there are appropriate avenues to process, and those don't always mean with like, you know, all your coworkers, and there's like so much nuance to it, of course. But I think that what I see the most in this space is like someone has a big emotion, and then what they try to do is fix the thing that happened that created that emotion. And that's where business gets super hard. And it's also where a lot of people, I think, like overspend, invest in things that are not supportive of them, et cetera, because they think it will solve never having to feel like that again. That's a question I find myself asking clients often is, are you doing this because it's a great decision in your business, or are you doing this because you never want to have to feel that thing again? Right? Like, when we can really be confronted with that and ask that, it's kind of amazing how often we're like, I'm trying to never feel the disappointment of a client saying no again. And so I'm trying to rework the entirety of my business and sales process because I never want to experience that disappointment again. Like, in our brains, that feels logical, right? And again, like the marketing kind of preys on that, and it gets really complicated really quickly. Yes, Morgana said it really does get weaponized. Lunatic has the same origin as lunar, i.e. women's cycle. Hysteria, same as hysterectomy, wombs again. Oh my gosh, look at that. Dang. So valuable to have that context. Jess said yes, and so much of the biz coaching space. I don't know why I'm struggling today because biz coaching space markets to a fantasy that you'll be able to control the uncontrollable. Right. Shari said yes, such a good filter. Right. And I think just spot on, like I think there is such a perpetual idea in our space that like, if a client ever creates a big emotion in you, you're doing something wrong. If a team member ever creates a big emotion in you, you're doing something wrong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, or that's how this all works, right? I think about, like, think about it in a comparable way to marriage or partnership or parenthood or motherhood, right? Like, I think that, is anyone really going to be able to say like, oh, I can be a parent without having big emotions? No, right? I can be in long-term partnership with another human and not have any big emotions around that. No. So I can build a long-term business that I am very much in partnership with the business as well as all of the people that work in it and that I serve and not have big emotions. Come the fuck on. Come on. No, right? Like, it makes no sense when you actually like think about it or say it out loud. But I think that it is pervasive marketing that makes a lot of women, especially us that identify as having been called overly sensitive, are emotionally sensitive, empathetic, etc. I think it makes them feel really wrong, and it makes them think they're missing something in their business model, or they're missing something in their mindset or their energy or whatever, right? And I do think there's something really powerful about being able to feel a big emotion and still take strategic action. I think that is wildly expansive and powerful. But the idea that that only happens because you didn't feel the big emotion and not because you did, I think is what's complicated. Like I am able personally to take the most strategic action when I have let myself feel the emotions, move through them, have a process with them, and then, right, I can go do the thing. Where I take the most unstrategic, messy, unhelpful action is typically when I'm trying to like avoid an emotion or like, yeah, avoid it, bypass it, like not have to deal with that. So I think that's just helpful to see, which is like, it's not like run your business based on emotion entirely. I do not believe in that. I do not think that that is useful either, but run your business without experiencing any big emotions is also a fucking lie, right? I feel like lately, I actually was thinking about this the other day. This is funny. I was thinking about my own messaging and I was like, I feel like I'm so, oh, hold on. I don't want to miss these comments. I love when my kiddos get to witness me having big emotions because she learns that it's normal and what to do with them and what not to do with them. I love that. Yes, big emotions and strategic action. I find the emotional release fuels motivation completely. I love you sharing big emotions with your kids. So powerful, makes you feel more relatable and for them to be safe to express their emotions. I would have loved my parents to do that more. That's super cool. I love that. Right. But I was actually thinking about my messaging recently, that sort of thing. And I was like, I feel like I'm so like boring, middle of the road sometimes. But it's because like that's really what I believe in, is that it's always both. Like we're always in the middle. Like it's like, so much in our space. Like it was like pro marketing, then feminine energetics, or like, you should run your business entirely from your masculine or entirely from your feminine, or you should run your business based on your emotions or have no emotions at all. Like it's all so fucking polarizing, which works for marketing, by the way. But at the end of the day, like it's just none of it practically makes sense to me. What makes sense to me is both and middle ground, like middle of the road. Like I'll watch this industry swing all fucking over the place, and I'm still going to be like, or you could just like feel something and be strategic, like, or you could just like want to make money but not like have to make $1 million a month to be successful. Like there's so much to that where I'm like, it just always keeps coming back to the middle of the road for me. And this is that with the emotions thing too. Like, are you going to have a client say no and feel disappointment sometimes? Yes. Does that mean your process is broken? No. Might you want to look at your process? Sure. You know what I mean? Like it's just all kind of simple when you think about it. Oh, I'm so glad it's warming your heart, Melissa. Thank you. Shari said my recent podcast episode was exactly on this topic. It's kind of like the most valuable leadership skill you can cultivate. Ooh, so good. Yes. Thank you for loving my boring content. Libra rising here, very here for the balance. Yeah. I mean, I think that this is the what's the crux of it, right? Is like there's always gonna be like ebb and flow, like big emotions, strategic action. Like we need one to balance out the other. And I think that when we spend so much time running from it versus embracing, accepting, learning how to function with it, that's where business goes wrong, right? Like we spend so much time running from it, and then we like buy the program that promises to like take away our blocks in a single session or whatever, and then are constantly disappointed that that didn't happen, feel like there's something wrong with us, spiral further and further and further. Like the biggest challenge here is, can you have it and not make it wrong? Can you not make it mean more, right? I'm earth on earth on earth, so always here for the middle path. That's what you share. Makes total sense. So I just like wrote down a couple examples because I was like, I think this can be helpful, but it's like, I'm disappointed that this sale didn't convert. You will feel big emotions of disappointment as a CEO often, probably, right? I'm sad this client isn't re-signing. It doesn't mean you did something wrong as a coach. You can still be sad to be letting go of a long-term relationship with a client, right? I think that's sort of the dance, like that. I'm sad this client isn't re-signing. It's such a good one because I feel like I've walked so many clients through that where it's like, they think because they feel sad, it means they did something wrong. And so then they're looking for, what did I do wrong? And they're like, well, it must mean I'm not a good coach if someone's not re-signing. And so then they like spiral out on that. Right. And they're spiraling into like, okay, so I'm a bad coach and I need to fix this and I need to fix that. And now I need all my clients to resign. And I need to do all of this stuff. And it's like, or like, you're just sad that this client isn't resigning. And that doesn't mean anything bad about you. It just means like, you've like had a great relationship with them. And it's like, okay to be sad or, disappointed about that. And so like, that's the stuff I think that we have to remember is like having an emotion does not mean something has gone wrong, go fix said thing, no matter how much our industry wants to kind of like push that narrative, right? Let me just see. I don't want to miss any comments. My goodness, a Libra sun, Libra moon, and 3 other things happening in Libra also into the balance. So funny. I love that. I love that y'all are like clear. You're like, I know what my thing is. Dominique said, experiencing a dip right now since one of my clients isn't resigning, trying not to let it affect how I show up right now. Totally. 5 planets in Libra here too. Mega balance. Towers. I love that, Nova. So Dominique, yeah, I think it's like that, right? It's like, okay, can I be whatever that feeling might be? Sad, disappointed, confused, whatever. Can I feel that thing and know that it doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong? I think that's always the ticket, but it doesn't mean you're not allowed to feel that at all. And so I feel like it's just like important to like name and note that, like the client resigning thing, so many people could like uproot their whole business almost from that place to be like, how do I make sure clients only never resign? And it's like, you like, right. You teach yourself that you can experience the difficult emotion of a client not resigning and still being okay, or the dip of a client not resigning and still be okay. And that's where like self-trust and strategy gets built in your business. So again, it's not to say that those things aren't hard. It's just to say that those things, once experienced, kind of like teach you that it's safe and okay, as opposed to, oh no, this thing happened and now things are bad, or now things are happening because of that, right? Yes, we do have such a good group of self-aware women. Jessica says, I feel like the secret hack to scaling is exactly this. It really is. It's like when you can learn that you can have a difficult emotion, not make a lot of meaning of it, still be okay. That kind of is the secret to scaling, because quite honestly, as you scale, there are a lot of difficult emotions that come with that. I literally just had this conversation with a client the other day. I don't want to be specific, but she's running like a big event, and she had to travel for it. She's like bringing on and letting go of team members. She's like doing some real estate stuff. There was one other thing we were talking about. I can't remember. There was like, this one thing she did was getting like a bunch of like shitty ass hate. Like people were like calling her fat and stuff. Fuck them. But like, she was literally dealing with all of that in like a single moment. And we were just talking about like, look at your capacity to feel all of these things, experience all of these things, experience all of this intensity, and still fucking show up and still go run that event and still be a CEO. Like that is everything, right? Alessi said, I'm having big emotion couple of days for personal reasons, and part of my brain tries to make me feel bad for not showing up for my business today, but I know that by tomorrow I'll feel so much better. Totally. I also think that sometimes it's like, if I give myself that time, I actually feel better and show up, like bounce back more quickly, as opposed to like, if I try to push in a way that doesn't feel good, like it could just be me not showing up for a long period of time, Just that I will say, somehow the difficult emotions my biz clients can feel so intense compared to other areas of my life. Like the difficult emotions my biz elicits can feel so intense compared to other areas of my life. Yeah, totally makes sense. Shari said, yes, and I feel like experiencing failure without internalizing it as a personal feeling is the dance too. Yes. Hi, Shantae. Yes, Michelle is seeing you, Alessia, and celebrating you for honoring yourself. Yeah, I think that's so true, right? Like the business, I think, it's such an easy place to experience all the emotions, because it's also so on you almost, right? Like like when it's in a relationship, there's like 2 people that feel responsible, I think sometimes, or when it's like, in parenthood, it's very clear. It's like you and this tiny human kind of thing. When it's your business, even though it is you and a bunch of other people, I think sometimes it's spread out in a way that makes it feel more intense on you, or like it's truly your issue or your thing or whatever. And so it kind of makes sense. I also think that some of us just have different areas that feel more intense. Like, maybe someone else has relationships feel more intense for them than business, or vice versa. But anyway, I think that that's really normal. Doesn't make it easy though, right? I just realized how much I needed this combo today. I lost a family member over the weekend. Oh, Melissa, I'm so sorry. We weren't that close, but still I took some time to myself. Life is always happening while the business is happening. It's so true, right? Like none of us get out of that. None of us get out of that experience. None of us aren't going to have life happen while business is happening. And it's really just the balance of like honoring both and not thinking that like no life has to be happening for the business to be successful, or vice versa, to think that if life is happening, the business can't be successful. That's not true either. Lisa said, I'm having all sorts of emotions around many blocks and aha moments. And I internalize these and want to hole up in a cave. It's so hard to explain and share to others. I'm so sorry, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think like what I would really look at there is what's making me like want to hole up. Like, is that my way of processing and like coming into myself? And does that feel really, really like vital and supportive and helpful? Or am I doing that because I think it's not safe to share my big emotions with other people? And then that might be something to lean into, but just seeing you in that like really difficult dance of like, is this like a supportive and serving way for me to like internally process and get through things? Or is this actually something where I need to like, let it be okay that I'm having big emotions and be okay to be more like, present to that with other people? I I obviously don't know. And I'm sure it's a little bit of both for all of us, but I really, really appreciate you sharing that. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, let's see what else I had as examples. Okay, so, I'm frustrated that I paid for something that wasn't delivered. I'm trying to decide here. Okay, so to give a season 8 podcast teaser, this is something we talk about on season 8 of the podcast, is like, what if you're mad just because you have a reason to be mad? Like, what if you paid for something that wasn't delivered? Are you like allowed to be mad about that? Like, I think that's such an important inquiry in our industry right now, because I feel like there's so like polarizing sides where it's either like, if you paid for something, even if it was like fully delivered and like, if you didn't get the result, like you can totally be mad. I don't know. Like, I think there's nuance to that. / the other side of it is like, even if you paid for something and it didn't get delivered, like you should be like grateful for what you did get and like not say shit. Like right? Again, it's so polarized. And I think that the thing there is just like, what if you had something that happened that made you mad and you're allowed to be mad? Right? Like, and you can still decide what you're going to do with that, and you can still handle it or not, or whatever. But like, at the end of the day, this idea that like people can do whatever to you and it's like not spiritual to be mad, or it's not, what's the word? Like enlightened enough, or you're not scaling successfully enough, or like, it's just fucking crazy, right? Like, or something just happened, you're allowed to be mad. We did already start recording, Michelle. I'm so excited for you guys to get season 8. We're going to actually take a shorter break between seasons than we normally do. So hot, what do you call it? Like hot tea there or whatever. We're not taking that long of a break, so you won't have to wait too long on season 8, but it's good. And that is, just one of the topics that has come up. I think that we're just in this interesting reinvention, I guess I would say, in our industry. And I'm going to actually talk more about that on a couple of lives next month. I have quite a bit to say about that, but I think we're kind of in this interesting place with that. But I feel like, again, what I want to keep being careful of and keep having conversations around is like, and this doesn't mean that you can't feel a thing. And this doesn't mean that if you feel mad, you have somehow missed the point and are wrong. Like, maybe you're just allowed to feel mad, Totally agree that you're always allowed to have your feelings and you don't always have to do something with them. Yes. Thanks, Steph. Shante says the way I hear that frame these days is, but what did you get from it? Stop it. I know I didn't give you the thing that you paid for, but what did you get from it? I cannot, which is also polarizing. It's almost creating space to bypass you being upset, especially when what was promised wasn't delivered on. Thank you for sharing that, Shante. But sorry, I said she used to hear that in 2019 a lot. Yeah. Morgana said so many people in the industry have deep rage and pain from their investments and don't feel like they can talk about it. Right. Totally. I think God, there's so much. I don't want to derail this live stream totally, but I have so much to say about that. But like, I think there's just like a reckoning our space is going through, and I think it's good. And I also think that it can be harmful in its own ways too, right? Like everything can get taken really far. Again, like story of the day, middle road. I think there needs to be more space to like bring the underbelly to the surface. And then I also think there are plenty of people that run with that in a way that's really harmful too, like nuance to all of it, but I do think like we are coming into a point of reckoning, conversation, et cetera, that is exciting and hopefully moves the industry forward for sure. Yeah, and you feel like it's coming back again. Yes, reclamation of the craft of coaching. Totally. I just wrote this post. I don't know when it's coming out, but that's kind of what I was saying in it too, is like, listen, like all these conversations need to happen. Things need to come to the surface, and coaching is still valuable, and coaching still matters, and your work still matters. Coaching still changes lives. Do we need to have all of these conversations? Yes. And let's not like dismantle the entire coaching industry or like the value of coaching either. Like there's so much more to all of it. And I think what's hard is it's just hard to hold really like nuanced conversations on this in our space. But I also feel like we have to, and we have to try, and we have to practice, Morgana says, as women, we're taught not to let our rage out from childhood. We're guided to be polite, quiet, gentle. So many of my clients feels like there's something wrong with them, that they have rage. And I'm like, no, it's the industry. Totally. Yes, 100%. Like maybe you have rage because you have a reason to feel rage here, and that is okay. And I think this idea that we're not allowed to ever feel that, let that out, that it somehow means we are not enlightened or evolved or whatever. Like, I really think the opposite. Like, I think a woman that can sit with her own rage is like quite a spiritual being, right? Quite evolved. And so I think like holding space for that is really key. Shante said, yep, agree. Honestly, I'll say this, and it's just what I believe to be true. Coaching is what helps me see all of it objectively. Yes, I love that. So good, right? Like, I think that's the thing. Like, let's have these conversations, but also like, let's just remember there's always more to all of it, right? Like, there's so much I want to say there. We can have more chats around for sure here, but yeah, like, I think it's time for like more nuance in our conversations. So back to example here, I think another one that I see a lot with people is, I'm mad that my team dropped the ball on something important. So this typically forks in one of two ways. I'm mad that my team dropped the ball on something important, and so I shall want to fire all of them because like I never want to feel like this again. And if I was a good business owner, my team would never ever drop the ball on something. Not true. Or it kind of works the other way. So it's like I get so in my anger that I'm like willing to do anything to make sure it doesn't happen again, right? Or the other way where it's like, I must be doing something wrong as a leader if I'm feeling mad at my team. And so I have shit to clean up, or I have stuff to fix, or I need to go hire a leadership coach or whatever, right? Or you're just mad that your team dropped the ball on something important. And you probably just need to sit with that feeling and emotion prior to approaching your team about it. You need to process it. You need to normalize it. You need to let yourself feel it. You maybe need a very healthy space to get that out in. See season 7 of podcast. Yeah. Steph said #inspired by Sabrina, right? This conversation has me super fired up. Love that, Michelle. But yeah, see season 7 of the podcast, right? And like, that can be okay. So I think, again, it's just like all of these things, of course, are going to bring up emotions in you. If your team messes something up, there is no way you're not going to have a feeling around that, right? And holding yourself to this standard that you shouldn't is what makes it all feel so wrong. Shari said, do you notice mind chatter or biz emotions are heightened after having baby due to lack of sleep? Let me think about that for a second. Yes. Sorry, I wanted to like make sure I was processing that fully. Yeah, totally. I think with lack of sleep, you're just like nervous system is more sensitive. And so I think that sometimes when things happen, you're just inherently a little more like heightened or attuned. Like I remember when we, for like maybe like 2 weeks after we moved into this house, it was a really hard, like he was like barely sleeping. Kenny lost a really close friend. He had to like travel for that funeral. Was just like really sad thing and sad time. I was still very much like processing losing my dad. Like so much stuff was happening. It was such a heightened time for me where I feel like if like someone even like looked at me the wrong way, I was just like done. So yes, totally. I think that's true. But I will say like not forever, not ongoing. Like I wouldn't say I felt like that for the entire year. I would say there was like heightened peaks of that where I was probably getting like significantly less sleep. But now if I get up like a couple times a night or whatever, I wouldn't say that's super noticeable, but yes, and I guess is how I would say that. But yeah, I think like lack of sleep, even like when we're sick or whatever, like that impacts us. Like that impacts how we can process and feel and how sensitive we feel and all that. And I don't use the term sensitive in a bad way. I mean it in like a realistic way, like how, prickly am I feeling kind of thing. And so I think that's another point though. That's a great point, Shari, of like, you're going to have emotions as a CEO because you're going to have times where you're sleeping better or worse. You're feeling more in health versus you're sick. Like right? Like that's all still going to happen in your business. And if you think you can only run your business or your business is only going to be successful when you're like managing your emotions at like a 10 out of 10, you're stuck, right? You're so stuck. Angie said perimenopause hormones are bringing the do not even try me vibes. I love that. I feel like that is probably a very good thing in some regards and a very intense thing in other regards. That's funny. But I think, the thing I kind of want to wrap with here that feels really important is like, that does not have to like dictate your ability to create success. So big emotions as a CEO does not have to equal a like a flag pointing one way or not to your success. I think it just equals a part of your human experience. And again, I think like that's the takeaway I want, to bring today is like, if you're someone who's like, oh, I like have felt all of those things in the same week, I was like disappointed and sad and frustrated and mad and like, don't let anyone or industry, the personal development field tell you that means you cannot or will not be successful because of that. That is not true. That does not have to be true. And that is not something to even fix necessarily, unless like there is definitely a separately identifiable problem that you definitely need to fix, which is okay too, but not because you had the emotion, right? In fact, if you can see like, I can go through this emotion and still be okay and still show up and still create success, that's where self-trust comes from. That's where your power comes from. Like that's when things in business honestly get really good. Yeah, it's holy moly, so funny. I always tell my husband that we're not giving too much weight to decisions when he's sick because that's when the emotions are off kilter. I completely agree with that, Shari. Same. Like if I'm like have a really bad cold or something, like I'm not making decisions then because they're not going to be great ones. And I'm going to choose like the absolute path of least resistance at that point, which does not always mean the best thing, right? Your favorite tool or practice for processing a big emotion before making decisions in business. I mean, honestly, like a lot of it is just kind of like, can you talk it out? Can you process it out? Like, so for me, a lot of times that's journaling. Like I love to sit down and just like write out how I'm feeling and processing it, the space that gives me is really, really, really epic. What I think versus when I see it in writing, I process in entirely different ways. So for me, that's kind of my biggest go-to. And yes, let me just grab that, Michelle. I don't want to miss your comment here. Yes, if you have a bad day, not always the time for big decisions. Totally. So anyway, Shari, yes, just like literally processing it out. Maybe I'm like talking out with Kenny. Maybe I'm talking out with a friend. A lot of my clients obviously will process it out in coaching. But like for the most part, I think because I've given myself so much practice with it, I am pretty big fan of doing it in my journal, because once I get that distance, I'm like pretty good at being like, oh, here's what's really going on. Here's how I feel about it, that kind of thing. And then honestly, sometimes it's literally just time, sometimes I need a couple of days. Like I'm not personally a fast processor typically. And so I usually need a little bit of time. I actually like recently made a pretty big decision and tried to, that's not even true. I was going to be like less kind to myself, but I kind of made it quickly because it sort of like just felt easy. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. I probably should have processed this more. And so then I kind of like retracted the decision, processed it more, and then made it again. And it was like imperfect and messy, but it's like, I just needed time and I like needed more space to process. And so sometimes time is healing. And then the last thing I will say is like, a walk does it for me. Like if I have something that feels big or intense, that is pretty much my go-to most of the time, is stop what I'm doing, get outside and move. And when I can like think and move, so healing and amazing. I really feel like it just like moves through you. But what's interesting about that is, so my highest revenue happened during the months when I felt awful. Good reminder of how I was feeling wasn't always indicative of how well I'm actually doing. So good. Yes. Same. Walks help me too. Yes. An emotional authority. That is for sure true. But I think what I want to say there is like, none of that is sexy, and I think that's why it gets hard, in our space sometimes, because it's like, okay, like, how do you process emotions? You like write it out, talk it out, move your body. Like, it's like not this fancy stuff that we kind of want it to be, where it's like, you get someone else's code and then it just goes away and never comes back. Or you like, break through this block and like, you'll never have to experience again. It's like, or you might have to take 5 walks and then feel better later. Like, I think it's just like sort of the unsexy stuff. And so sometimes one, it's hard to convince ourselves to do because we think we must be missing something. It must be bigger than that. Or two, it just doesn't sell as well. It's like the unsexy stuff that you can easily go do, Kim says walking in nature is the best healing tool for me, or getting beside a lake or river. I love that. That time is healing combo is a rabbit hole I could totally go down. I've always find time is healing as long as you've given yourself the space to feel the thing versus just avoid it till it goes over the time. Yes, agree with that, Michelle. Thank you for that clarification. I am very much a process it, feel it person. So sometimes time is very healing for me personally, but it is because of that, not because of avoiding it. So yes, very true. Completely. So yeah, but I feel like those are like the unattractive things in a way, but they are what works. They are really simple. Usually the simplest thing kind of works the best. And, sometimes I'll even have clients do it in base camp. Like they'll like rage about something, and then like by the time, I even come back to it, they're like, okay, I actually feel so much better. You know what I mean? Like it's just getting it out. It's getting enough separation and perspective from our thoughts to see it in a different way. But I think biggest point of all of that too, is it's also not creating additional meaning, right? This means I can't be successful. This means I'm not doing well enough. This means my team sucks. This means I'm having an emotion. Let me separately decide if my team sucks. This means I had something that happened that made me feel mad. Let me separately decide what I need to do about it. Like that's all it means, and when we can like really anchor that, I feel like that's when it gets easier. Yes, you're so welcome, Shari. Thanks for being here. Oops. I think this is where coaching and therapy is so helpful too, because feeling with another present in itself can be so healing. Yes, absolutely true. Non-judgmental witnessing is so helpful. Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes we just need that, like, okay, yeah, I see you. Like, I get why you're mad. You know what I mean? Like one of my clients shared this like thing the other day and was like, I'm like so triggered by this thing. What do you think's coming up for me here? What do you think's going on here? And I gave her some reflections and was just like, it makes sense to me that this triggered you because of X, X, X. And I wasn't like, and here's how you have to shift it. And here's what you need to do about it. I was just like, I'm seeing you in this, and it really makes sense to me that this triggered you for these 3 reasons. And she came back and was like, thank you for knowing that was the exact response I needed. Like, I did not need you to fix something. I didn't need to have to shift anything. I did not need to like jump through all these hoops. Like, I just needed somebody to be like, it makes sense that you feel this way. And I was like, totally fucking makes sense that you feel this way. And that was like it, right? And then she like was able to move on. And it doesn't mean she'll never feel that way again, or there's not like some magical thing here where I'm like, and I, like shifted her block for eternity, or like, no, I was just like, yeah, kind of makes sense that you feel that way. Like that's all we need sometimes. And it's what so many of us like won't give ourselves, or feel like we're not supposed to give ourselves. Michelle says, me when I have a big feeling. Oh, right. I'm still human. Exactly. Still waiting for that Hogwarts letter, but even wizards have big feelings. See Harry Potter book 5. Yeah. Like all of us. That's what we do in here, right? We feel in the big thing. So anyway, I just wanted to like name that today. I just wanted to say this is totally normal. Literally all of my clients have this. The ones that are crushing it absolutely have this. Like, in fact, more so sometimes, because more comes with all of that. And it's just like, are you letting that be okay? Are you letting yourself process that? And how much time are you spending trying to fix something that's not broken? So yeah, I hope that, oh, Michelle, I want to read that comment you said. I saved it. I remember back in those early days when I had first found you and Julia, I asked you a question about this, and after one of our losses. And I remember you saying, can you trust that you'll be okay no matter what? And that just really stuck with me. Right. When you can feel such big emotions and see yourself come out on the other side of them, you build that evidence that like, I'm still okay. That was hard and I'm still okay. That did not feel good and I'm still okay. And it doesn't mean that we want to go through those things again. But when we have that self-trust and evidence that we can, I think it's really powerful. When we make the story, I can't handle that, that's when things get hard. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, guys, that's really all I have for today. Like, you get to feel the things. It's really normal. It does not mean you're doing it wrong. Please do not buy into anything that tells you that you are. And that's kind of it. All right, guys. Oh, in other news, and then I shall let you all go. I'm just very proud of myself. So this is about me. Feel free to jump off. I made a reel today, you guys. I have not made a reel ever. Real talk. My team takes my client lessons, makes a reel. I made a reel today. Felt like a labor of love. I am so proud of myself. So anyway, if you don't follow me on IG, hop on over to see my reel. Give me a little love. Really did the Lord's work this morning. When I told Megan, she was like truly confused. She was like, I don't understand. Like, you went in and made a reel. It's like, yeah. So anyway, follow me over there. I'm very impressed with myself. Thanks, guys. Yes, of course it was Bennett. Could not have motivated me to do that for any other reason besides Bennett. But thank you guys. I appreciate you. I hope that you have a beautiful Monday. I know, Michelle, I totally stole that from you, doing the Lord's work. That's such a you saying. I hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I will be back. Actually, I won't be back next week. I'm not going to be here next week because it's my birthday. I was going to do like a whole 7 lessons thing, which I will do in May, but I decided to take my birthday off. So I will be back after that. I hope you guys have a beautiful week next week, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.